Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing, Camper Kings UK, and affiliation with Betmate.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Across the Park podcast Derby review. It's episode 34 of the 2021-2022 season, and at the moment it's 2 Blues versus 1 Red, which is exactly how we're going to need it on this episode. Now we'll be joined by Gary later on the episode, but at the moment it's myself, Judgy and Pricey, joined by Terry from the Red side. So as the name of the show, or the top of the show suggests, we will be reviewing yesterday's derby, along with any of the other topics that came out of the derby. Where do we start? I mean, we have had, I just want to thank our listeners and followers. We have had a lot of interaction since yesterday's game. A few comments / questions following the instant match reaction. Blues really taking a bite at Terry and Gary. And then some comments from both sides of the park in relation to yesterday's game. And obviously the repercussions of the results on Liverpool's title challenge and Everton's fight against relegation. Well, Pricey, I'm just going to start with you. So, we're not going to obviously do a Monday Night Football analysis on the game, but going into the game, Burnley's 3 points. Just before we touch on the game itself, what kinds of impact do you think that has on the players going into the game?
If any, I don't know whether they discussed it or not. It's not like it was the day before. It was a couple of hours before, wasn't it? I don't know if that would have been the topic of conversation in the changing rooms before the game or not. I doubt it would have been, to be honest. If they did know about it, then it can only rile them on even more than what you'd hope to be riled on anyway going into it. And I think if that was the case and that was the reason for a decent performance, especially in the first half, then so be it. But I can't see personally that would have had too much of an impact on it. I think obviously after the end of the game, once they've realised and they've had a look at the standings and the table, it will. But at the time, I don't know. What do you reckon? Do you think it would have?
I think for me, it did have an impact on the mentality to a certain extent. I'm not sure that it would have been. I mean, we were using the words free hit. We're leading up to it, weren't we? In the sense of we can't see ourselves getting out of the game. But if we lose, and if we lose, it's not the end of the world. Do you know what I mean? But I think once you see that table before the game and know we're in there, suddenly it's, we need to get a point from this game, I think, anyway. And I know Terry's going to touch on it. We certainly will touch on the mentality and the approach of the Everton team. There was no doubt we'd come there to with one, objective, and that was to stifle Liverpool. And in fairness, whichever way you look at it, for the first 45 minutes, we done that, didn't we? Terry?
Yeah. Sorry, Terry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said on the podcast and before the game, you could understand why, Lampard, you would try and sort of, not drag us to your level, but you've got to use what's at your disposal. You know what I mean? And that means sort of maybe being a bit rougher in the tackle and stuff, and maybe thinking the likes of some of our players might have eyes on what is perceived to be bigger games down the line, finals and Champions League semi-finals. So I think, you definitely did come with a game plan that was sort of to try and spoil the rhythm, I suppose, is the best way I could describe it. Keep.
Come on, Terry. You want to be? This is not what you were saying yesterday.
Well, I was calling it anti-football because it was. It was basically. You knew you're not going to have a lot of the ball, and that means when you have got it, sort of delay. And take extra yards on.
Football only about when you've got the ball, is it?
No. But the point when we were having argument about this yesterday is whilst I can understand pragmatically why you would do that, and if we were in your situation, I'd expect us to be doing the same. But you can't enjoy it when you're the other team. That you when we've watched us play sublime football against Man U and stuff, and great entertainment as well as obviously getting the results. It's even worse when it's happening, and it's this is horrible.
Just going back on that to perfect. Why were you not able to play sublime football, or why were you able to play sublime? Because United sat back against Hughes. They sat back. They didn't do very well.
Yeah, I think personally, it was a slow start by us, you know, and that was what I said I didn't want us to do. Against Man U, you seen, we came out with a different intent. It was almost like from the first whistle, the Liverpool team were like, we're winning this game, I don't care what happens, and we're doing it in style, you know, and I don't know whether it's, you know, because we perform slightly differently, I don't know, under the light in the evenings or something. I just don't know what it is. But in that derby there, I didn't think we started well. And then the midfield didn't look right. You know, it was the midfield that we all said we'd play, Keita, Henderson, and Keita, Thiago, and Fabinho. But it just didn't look right. It wasn't like I thought Keita had a very poor game, and he's been good the last couple of weeks. But there seemed to just be a bit of dysfunction there. Trent started really.
Is that nothing to do with us then? Because listen, you can talk about the intensity, you can talk about the midfield, and I think the midfield is a good point. I was saying while the game was going on, I thought Alan, Zakore, and Iwobi were just all over your midfielders whenever they had the ball. Now, I'm not saying like they were better than them because, you know, you'll see all the stats about the passing. There's two sides to football. I just feel off the ball, we were better off the ball in the first half than usual. We had more intensity off the ball. And that forced mistakes. I thought Thiago was poor. I thought he lost the ball several times in possession. I thought any time he had a touch that was slightly out of his feet, he lost it. And I think that put you under pressure on the counter. And we had a few opportunities on the counter. Yeah, I think in the first half, probably, you know, better opportunities than you did.
I think in fairness, you know, I'm not going to really argue with. I'm not going to say it's all down to us having an off day and you not doing anything. I thought, you know, like your midfield was sort of putting itself about, and there was a sort of get on Thiago's toes a little bit. That he just didn't seem to have that time that he had against Man U. But at the same time, Keita was really poor. I thought, you know, every time he had the ball, it was like he didn't know what the passages of play or the patterns that he should have been looking for and where to go. And I thought Trent started really poor. And whether that's because, you know, he had his hands full with Gordon or whatever, but his passing, like he gave the ball away about 3 or 4 times, you know, like simple passes, which for him, you'd expect him to make all the time. And that just breeds that sort of little bit of the groans, you know, where it's like, what's happening here? This is not normal. I think it was a combination of both. I think we started poorly, but in fairness, you know, you did sort of, you know, press and you're saying off the ball, you'd have to be off the ball because you never really got much of it. But, you know, I credit where it's due. You know, I think Zakore certainly had a better game than he's had recently, you know, because he's been poor and he looked a little bit more like what he was doing last year. You know, he was a lot more energetic and stuff. And Alan, you know, he was sort of mixing it up. But I don't think it was necessarily like, you know, it was all about what you were doing or it was all about us having an off day. It was a bit of both coming together. But the first half just wasn't enjoyable first half as a Liverpool fan. It wasn't what I was expecting. I expected us to be a little bit more sort of fluent, and it looked like we started slow and a bit too deliberate, which you know, obviously wasn't what I was expecting and wasn't what I wanted us to do.
Pricey, you were trying to get in there. Is there something you wanted to add to that?
Just in terms of the midfield, I think, yeah, our midfield play well, but it was the fact that they sat a bit deeper and they stopped the space. So there was no space for you to pass. So you're saying it was deliberate. It was because you had to try and find that perfect pass because we were filling in the gap so much. I think early on, you've got a ball wide to Salah, and Michalenko took it off him. And I think it sort of surprised Salah, and then he had another couple of goals and he didn't get past him. He did in the end, but he didn't get past him a few times. I think that sort of took his back a little bit as well. Because that way it happened. Usually he'd come inside or he'd do that 1-2 and it'd work, and it just wasn't working. So I think it was a bit about that. You've got to give Everton a lot of credit in the first half for the fact that you're saying it wasn't what you expected. But I can also see if you're a Liverpool fan, you didn't play well either, especially for the first half an hour. I think you had a couple of half chances in the last 15 of the first half, but not really. But I think you've got to put it down the way we set up in the first half, and it was only when you brought the subs on that you looked like, you did score and you looked like you might take the game.
Just before we move past this, Terry, you mentioned Zakore. Then we had a question from one of our listeners, so I'm going to level it at Pricey. He said, when you see Zakore playing as well as he did yesterday and compare that to his performances the rest of the season, does he walk away with the awards for the biggest shithouse at the club? He can do it. He's just not asked half the time. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't think it's fair in terms of effort. I don't think he shies away from it. I think he's just had a poor season. He got injured, and I think his confidence has been low, and he just hasn't been able to get it going and get the momentum going in the season. It's definitely right that he had his best game of the season probably so far. But in say, he's not one of the players I call a shithouse. There's others that I would. He's not one of them. So I disagree with that comment, but I do agree that that's the best he's played. And if he'd been at that level for longer in the season, then we might have done better because he's a key player. He was a key player at the start of the season when Benitez was first there and sort of before he got injured to start with. He was one of our main players. If he had kept that momentum going, then yeah, it might have been different. But I don't think it's attitude from him particularly.
Well, that's from Liam, by the way. I think just to add to that, I think going back to last season, which it feels like it'd be a lovely dream to go back to last year. But then too, as in Alan Zakore, were the spoilers, weren't they? They weren't asked to do any more than that. It was just spoil the play, make it difficult for the opposition and get it forwards. And I think both of them, to a large degree, have lost that identity this season, and they kind of recaptured that a little bit yesterday. Welcome, Gary. Obviously, Gary, for the listeners who can't see the screen, Gary's just joined the stream. You haven't missed much, Gary. We were just talking about the first half, really, and how Terry's described as Liverpool found it difficult to get the momentum going and maybe didn't start with the same vigour that he did against Man United. Pricey feels, and so do I, that it was largely down to us just getting a little bit closer to use than Man United maybe did. And Liverpool, to some extent, were a little bit taken back by that. Anything you want to add to that, Gary?
No, you're probably right. You're definitely set up a lot differently than I expected you to. You've had all of the tactics that you needed. That I think that team's in your position, and it's not just having a dig, but when you're in a relegation battle, going to one of the best teams in the league, us or City, you've got to do things like that. And it was a proper. Wouldn't be surprised if Lampard had phoned Mourinho a couple of days before to ask him how to play at Anfield, because you're smiling there, but it was like a proper Mourinho side coming to Anfield, and it's exactly what you've done. And to be fair, it was working. You know, you proper frustrated us. I'd like to see how many minutes the ball was actually in play for the first half compared to the second, because it seemed like it was just stoppage after stoppage after stoppage. And again, that's not a dig. That's exactly what you need to do, and did very well. And it was very, very frustrating for us as fans, and probably for the players, because they wanted to be able to get it down and knock it round and play our way, and we got dragged down into a proper fight, which is what we don't really want to do.
I mean,
I don't see it as a dig. I don't see it as a dig anyway. No, you're saying it's not. I'm quite pleased that we done that. I'm glad, because as you say, that's the way you should set up when you're playing against Liverpool. So it's not a dig. It's good on us, I think. And it was just a shame that we couldn't do it for longer periods than just the first hour, to be honest. But yeah, it wasn't Mourinho's tactics. It was all, that was written all over them. Pickford going down every time he caught the ball, and taking ages over goal kicks and throw-ins. And fair play, I thought.
What the bits that I noticed that was like what I thought was quite clever, and I'm giving Lampard credit that he probably has sort of told them to do this, is every time you've got a set piece, whether it was Pickford taking a kick or whether it was a throw-in, one of your players would go and talk to the referee, and it'd sort of take that attention away from the set piece taker.
How long he was taking.
And throw-ins able to buy like 10 yards up the line, because every time, and I was saying to the lad in the stand, I was like, what was really frustrating for me from a Liverpool fan perspective is, without Henderson or Milner on the pitch, we don't seem to have them players in the team who will see that and go, I'm going to go and have a word with the referee and say, be alert to this, wake up. This is what they're doing. Henderson and Milner would have been in his ear like that.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. We haven't had them players for a long. I mean, me and Price was saying that to me. I think I sat next to him last week against Leicester. We haven't had them players for a long time, and we don't do them things either. The amount of times when things are not going our way, and none of our players seem to go and get in the ref's ear, or put an arm around the way, ref, have you seen this or whatever. We were all over the ref on many occasions yesterday, and again, I don't know that some fans or pundits or whatever would take that as a a poor remark about us, but I think that's what we've needed for a long time. And we talk about that performance, or you talk about the way we set up. We actually have done that well a few times. We've done it against Man City. The frustrating thing is we haven't done it often enough when we've had to. I think we've gave we haven't gave teams enough respect who we've played, thinking, oh, we can go toe-to-toe with these. Tottenham away, for instance, that's exactly how we should have played at Tottenham away. We would have picked up a lot more points in the last 10, 15 games as we had a bit more respect for teams the way we did against you and understood our limitations, because that is the way that this team needs to play probably every other week, isn't it, Pricey?
I was going to say it's a blueprint for to go forward now after like 6 games as well, especially, well, home games maybe not so much, but away games, yeah, that's exactly how we should have played. And it's sort of how Benitez started playing when at the start of the season, and he sort of lost his way a bit, and then Lampard tried to do, well, he had a success at Leeds at home, and that's how he tried to play then, isn't it, for the next few after that. It sort of cost us a few points, I think. But yeah, I think last 6 games, even to, as I say, even extend to home games, probably be more conservative as we were, and just make every game more of a battle than we have done previously.
I just want to touch on something now, which is a bit of a joint. You mentioned about the referee then, Terry, sorry. We were ridiculously frustrated with the referee on a number of levels, but I'm just going to bring this guy in because he's been a subject of some debate as well.
Hi, I'm Jamie Carragher, and you are listening to Across the Park podcast.
Now, I want to bring that in tongue-in-cheek, so we're obviously not going to slag Jamie off despite the anger that he caused a lot of Evertonians. He's a good friend of the show. He's a Scouser. He was a boyhood Evertonian, but yesterday he done my head in. Little comments like, and I know you two were at the match because you wouldn't have heard them. You may have heard them today, but little comments like, oh, Richarlison's gone down again, nothing wrong with him. And then he's actually went back and seen that there was a few comments around, Anthony Gordon going down, which I know, look, we're going to come on to that in a moment, justifiably so at times. But when Origi come on, it was like, here comes Divock. And then he scores and it's like, get your statue ready, Divock. It was just, we know Carragher as Scousers and obviously the whole city knows Carragher's personality. They know his affinity to Liverpool, but that game and the importance of that game to Everton fans, I think Sky, maybe we're a little bit naive in putting Carragher on that game.
Well, it's one of them, isn't it? He's one of the main pundits now. So I think if they took him off it, I think he would have had something to say. Like, you're messing, you know what I mean? It's like it's a derby in his home city. You're expecting to probably hear Jamie Carragher's input on it, aren't you? So I don't think that he was ever going to get taken off. But I think there is, obviously I haven't heard the commentary, but I think you probably do have to be a little bit more impartial.
Why not throw another comment? Look, I'm not saying take him off the derby. Why not throw another co-commentator on there? That's been done before. When Liverpool played United, they've had, Carragher and Neville in there sometimes. Throw 2 co-commentators on there. They do it on the radio enough when there's 2 teams that are rivals. I just think it was very one-sided. And listen, obviously, I don't watch that many games that are involving Everton on Sky. I'm normally there. But yesterday, to the point, I muted it for a while, because particularly after you just scored the first goal. Pricey?
No, I agree. I think he'd be loving this, by the way. He'd be loving us talking about it and saying it. That's what he's doing it for. And that's as much as I'm an Evertonian, it done my head in. I think it's fine to do it, but as you say, I'd like to have another co-commentator, even if it's Gary Neville, just to deflect some away from him and just go, hang on a minute. Let's like just another opinion, a different side of it. So it's not the fact that he was doing it, which it did do me head in, and I noticed it before you'd even mentioned it to me earlier today. But yeah, I just would have liked Sky to put somebody else on just to balance it up a little bit. I mean, giving Origi man of the match, I'm giving it to Origi because he's come on and he's changed the game. And laughing as he's saying it, knowing it full well what he's getting.
How's Robertson, how's Robertson not man of the match? Robertson basically blocks one off the line and scores the first goal, which was the pivotal goal. You can laugh all over it.
In fairness, though, the subs, he came on 60 minutes.
Give Klopp man of the match then. Give Klopp man of the match.
2 minutes in, Origi has sort of caused a little bit of a problem in your box that results in the goal. And
he didn't set the goal up. He holds the ball up. Yeah, listen, he has a really big impact on the game, and obviously it's the whole. He wanted that narrative to, and that's another example. He wanted that narrative just to wind us up a bit more, to go and he was thinking in his head, I can't wait to get back to the pub later, and my mates to go, hey, giving Origi man of the match to his boss.
Just to sort of fair enough, I can see what you're saying. What I'm interested in, what was your when you seen Divock coming on? Did you
Oh, no, I
sort
was-
of go, oh?
Yeah, I was
And do you
rolling.
reckon-
There we go.
Do you think that there's like your players psychologically?
Not just our players. There's been hundreds, if not thousands, of players in the history of football that just love playing against certain teams, don't they? And it, you know, strikers in particular, are really like sensitive creatures, aren't they? They like, if they're flying, they're flying. If they're struggling to score, they can't hit a barn door. I just think with Origi, he almost comes on with like just I don't know.
I know I'm going to score in this game. Basically, like that's almost like it's mad, isn't it? But it was a great substitution, and to be fair, them substitutions did change the game. Diaz and Origi, I thought were absolutely boss when they came on, but it's just nuts. Like, you know, he's obviously signed a contract, hasn't he, to go in the summer to AC Milan, and you could definitely see like Klopp saying, "I'm going to throw him in that derby and know he'll score." You know what I mean? And what a way to sort of cap off his Liverpool journey.
He hasn't played for so long.
Yeah.
He hasn't played for so long, but now we're getting to the business end. We've got semi-finals, finals, and big end to the season. You've got to get him match fit now because this is his time of the season.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves.
Going back to Carragher, he actually said in the commentary, he said Klopp wouldn't have brought him on if it weren't against Everton. He said that's definitely tipped the balance of him coming on. And as you say, regardless of it being Everton and Liverpool, there's strikers all over the world who love playing against certain teams, and they have that bit of confidence when they come on. So it's definitely had a factor. Doesn't stop us being pissed off with Jamie Carragher, though.
Definitely not. But we had a few people who messaged us about that. So again, look, we're dead open. Jamie is a friend of the show. We're not going to go to. And you know what? He's a Liverpoolian, and I think put the shoe on the other foot. If any of us were sitting in that seat, we try our best to be as impartial as we could. But at some point, when the stakes are high, it comes out, doesn't it? And you can't help yourself. So yeah, you know, we are having a go at Sky, probably more so than Jamie in that situation. Look, I've got to level this one at you two, Gary and Terry. We had a comment which was sent on Twitter about your instant match reaction. Shocking pod today, lads, as in the instant match reaction. Gordon is apparently he's called Gordon Shite, which I'm not sure was the case. But
I think I did anyway.
I did.
Gary did. Baffling take. He mugged Trent off all game until he was switched over to the right. We had 9 shots, not 2 or 3. It's disappointing that we had to play that way, but we only get the chance. But it's our only chance to get anything. Plus, we were in the game for 82 minutes. Play any other way, and it's probably 6-0. Just on that one, and look, I'll say to you, Gary, Gordon wasn't shite.
No. Listen, that was 10 pints of Guinness deep, come out buzzing after the game, frustrated that he dived and cheated so much in the game. But yeah, if anyone was a threat for Everton there, it was definitely Gordon. It was a bit of a wind up, knowing that some Evertonians will see that and get frustrated by it.
in honesty, though, and I'll ask you the question first. Did Gordon's pace shock you a little bit?
No, I think, and you know, I think you'll agree. I've said this a couple of times over the last few weeks. He's looked the player when I've watched you that looks the one who cares the most, the one who sort of is trying to make something happen. And I've said it shouldn't rest on his young shoulders. You know, he shouldn't be the one that's doing that and trying to lead the charge for yous. So I don't think I was shocked because I know he's a dangerous player. You know, and I'm always wary about Trent when he gets squared up. You know, when players run on him. I think I said that in the pub, and our mate Mick said, like, to be fair, Trent had a good game against Man U and stuff, you know, and his defending was a lot better, you know, when he made interceptions that he had to and he looked good. But he's always still the one for me that, you know, we rely on him so heavily attacking wise. And, you know, I think that was always the worry that, you know, Gordon might get behind him and stuff. And when we were talking about it in the pre-match, the preview, and I said, is it going to be Gray or Gordon who's playing? You said Gordon. And I was asking that question because it's, you know, them two players are the ones who I would worry up against Trent, you know, out of your team, because they're the ones that are most likely, I think, to sort of go past or get in behind him. One, Gray with his footwork, you know, in terms of being able to beat a man, and Gordon because he looks to run behind and he's quick, isn't he? So I don't think I was shocked in terms of, I think he was your best player on the day. But I do agree with what Gary said on the instant match. He has to cut out that diving. Yeah. And to be fair, it's probably cost you the penalty at the end. I know it shouldn't. because VAR should help out there. But I think that's been partly what has meant that you haven't got that penalty.
I do too, and I think he needs to stop it now before the reputation gets bigger and bigger. It's already a big talking point now after that game. He's done it in the last few games as well. I've noticed that when I've seen your games, he has threw himself a little bit too easy. Sometimes it has been a foul, but he's made them out. Like what Mills used to say about Salah. But he really makes the most of every single thing, and he needs to stop it now before that reputation gets too big and he costs us even more.
Two things.
I think that first one, there was contact on the first one. I know he went down.
Keita
dramatically, but there was contact on it. Yeah. Well, I don't know what it was when the one he got booked for it when he went down. There was contact on it. It wasn't like a complete dive where he was he just threw himself in the air. There was contact. He just went down too dramatically. And you're right. He
said himself, Fanny. He said he felt contact and went down. He said, I haven't watched it back. It's probably not enough for a penalty, but it's definitely not a yellow card either. That's what Gordon said.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He sort of goes down and then does an extra sort of thing on it, which makes it look even worse.
Because he knew he lost control of the ball. Now, the only thing I was going to say, and I do agree, is, by the way, I think he needs to find a balance here. And when I say he needs to find a balance, he wins a lot of good free kicks for the teams. I mean, he's got that knack, a bit like Salah, and a lot like Grealish, where he just knows how to get his body in between the ball and the man. And I think it's a good asset, particularly for a team that plays the way we need to play. As in, when we get up the pitch, we're either getting up the pitch to try and gain some territory and get a free kick or whatever, or we're playing on the break. So it is a good asset. And I think to a certain extent, and it's probably a bit controversial, I think to a certain extent that's been coached into him. I think to know when, look, he's not the type of character who just... sounds a bit not the type of character to be just a cheat. He's not like an over, extravagant player.
He's a young lad, and at that age, he was obviously desperate for Everton to do well. He's going to try and find any advantage. But in this day and age with cameras everywhere, as Gary said, eventually someone has to sort of say, you've got to, as you say, find a balance, because you can't. You know what I mean? Your reputation does start to precede you, and then you will start throwing like, are we not getting that? Am I not getting that? And that happened for Salah. Remember, guys? Like there was a lot of press coverage over Salah going down easily, and then there was some ruthless fouls in the box where we didn't get anything for them. Yeah. And you're like, in a way, it was his own fault, because referees were sort of like, nah, you're not conning me. They almost went out to the game with that mindset. I'm not getting conned. So
what about the second one then? So the ref's got in his mind that Gordon goes down easily, but VAR's there to disprove even what the ref thinks. Override the ref if it's a mistake. The second one was clearly a mistake, so that's not a Gordon or a ref issue. That's a VAR issue. That the ref might be thinking he's going to go down, but it was a pen. He did get pushed. So why aren't they looking at VAR and overriding the ref there? That's the issue.
I actually don't think it was really probably even the arms on the shoulder that I would give a penalty for. When I've seen it since today, he sort of stands on his foot, and I think that's what you could give the pen for. I don't think there was actually enough in terms of the shoulder to shoulder to give a penalty for it. Do you know what I mean? Although the Lovren one on Holgate, was it? It was similar to that, wasn't it? Sort of behind, and it's one of them where I don't think it was a pen. Calvert-Lewin, sorry, yeah. I don't think it was a pen on that one, and I don't think that one was in terms of massive shoulder to shoulder, but he has stood on his foot. I think with the VAR there, it's, is it... We've been guilty of VAR getting too thingo on the games, and it's almost like they've took it too far back now. Oh, it's not a clear and obvious error by the referee. It was one of them, so it's like it hasn't been...
Surely it's easy enough, Terry. The ball's gone out of play. This is the key thing for me. The game's not in motion. The ball's gone out of play. It should be a simple thing, the VAR saying to the ref, could you see that incident clearly? This is what we seen. Yeah, it did. I'm happy with it. But that didn't even happen. They didn't even look at it. Didn't even speak to the referee. That's fucking ridiculous. That's insanely poor from, and it's happened once. I mean, the first time it happened against Man City in terms of the VAR looked at it, says it was an handball, even though it blatantly was handball. That's bad. I don't know what's worse. Like, they're not even looking at it, or looking at it and then getting it wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you obviously seen it back today, haven't you, guys?
Yeah.
What was your take on it?
Yeah, it's similar, to be honest. I think I didn't know that VAR didn't even look at it at all. How do you know that?
They come out and said that they didn't They didn't
review
the
it.
referee, they were satisfied. The referee, what they said, so they said the other way. If the referee would have given the penalty, we wouldn't have even contemplated overruling it. So that makes me think. This is what PJMOL said. If the referee would have given the penalty, it wouldn't have been considered to be overruled. So why, when he hasn't given it, have they not felt the need to actually?
Yeah, the only thing I thought that might have swayed it, but I say I didn't know that they hadn't checked at all, was because of what he'd been booked earlier for diving. And there's a moment in it. Yeah, you've got the leaning on him from Matip, and then it's hard for the referee to see that he stands on his foot. But when he stands on his foot, he sort of throws his leg out as well as he goes down. But obviously, it's impossible for the ref to be able to see that Matip stood on his foot as they've gone. The only thing is maybe the little tiny bit of theatrics that have played into the mind because of what's happened earlier on in the game. But I'm not saying that it weren't a pen. It probably was a penalty. But
yeah, I think it is. I think it is, as Gary just said there, is like if the referee, if he's sort of happy, I don't think that was a penalty. Can VAR really say to the ref, you've got that one completely, definitely wrong? I don't know. I think
that's what VAR is for.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I just don't think it's not like it's a complete. I don't think it's like a complete and bang obvious penalty. It's a coming together, and it seems to stand on his toe.
Eddie.
Most VAR decisions are like that, though.
Yeah,
most VARs like that.
If this is the point. If it's a completely obvious penalty, as in right in front of the ref's eyes, facing him, then he just gives it because he can't not give it. Whereas the position he's in, which is why this is what baffles me. The angle that the referee's at, right behind Matip, is what kills him. He can't see any of that contact you're talking about. All he can see is Matip with his arms across, as you would as a centre back. I think Matip was like, it wasn't poor defending by him. Gordon was just faster than him, got across him. The ref can't see any of that contact with the foot, and that's why the ref's handicapped in his view. And that's what VAR's job is to balance that up and go, look at it from this angle. That's all they're there to do, isn't it? And if the ref is over,
go and look at the monitor, I think, and say, like, it's one of them, but you might want to take another look at it from, as you say, from this angle. I think that's fair. That's a fair point.
But look, it is what it is. There were some other flashpoints. I mean, did you see the Mane stuff back? The big lookers just before half time. I mean, I think he's lucky. He has got form for that type of thing, Mane, where he just tends to get a little bit hot under the collar.
You could say the same with Richarlison, though, couldn't you? Where he kicked out on Henderson. I think it was Richarlison, wasn't it?
Henderson kicks Richarlison first, doesn't he? So I think if you look at that back, you probably. So when he first goes down, which Henderson kicks Richarlison, and then Richarlison turns around and kicks him. I think that's why, because the linesman, you watch the lines, he goes up to the linesman, and linesman basically goes, it was both of them. And the ref had seen the kick out from Richarlison, so just give Richarlison the yellow. But,
I mean, it was one of them, I don't think it was a particularly, nasty game, but it was one of them where there was a lot of going down, there was a lot of, getting in the ref's ear, and to be fair, you didn't think the referees had a good game there. In a weird way, I didn't in the first half. I was thinking, what's this referee's lost this game? He's letting them get away with murder in terms of the way that they're slowing it and stuff. And
I thought he was terrible all game.
So both sides think the referees had a nightmare game, which is mad, isn't it? But well,
no, it's not, is it? What you want, don't you? You want consistency, and I don't think there was a degree of consistency there. Whichever way you look at it, and he's got the big decisions wrong for me, and that for us, it's massive. Now look. Just because before the Reds start attacking me tomorrow.
Just before we get away from the referee points, did Gordon, when he kicked the balls away after he's already been booked, was that before the pen or the potential pen?
Where it was by the touchline, he didn't volley it away. Just puts it.
First half, wasn't it?
3 times he kicks it away, after he's been booked, and you sort of and then even the one where Trent got booked, Trent actually doesn't make contact with him. Gordon leaves his foot on him and then goes down. And
you're not saying that Trent.
No, Trent, the way he's sliding in is, he's asking for the referee
to make sure he makes contact.
Nowhere near the ball either.
Watch it back. He doesn't.
Yeah, he didn't touch him. He don't have to touch him.
Miles away, and then he leaves his toe on him.
No, Gordon jumps right to try and jump the challenge of Trent, and his feet are in the air, so he couldn't have landed on the floor because Trent's feet are there. He goes like that. And
watch it back. Honestly, when you watch it, you're like, that's actually a dive. He has actually dived. You know, after that one as well.
He's had to jump over Trent's legs.
He's already over him though. He's away, and then he sort of drops his leg onto Trent and then goes. It's mad. It is mad, honestly.
I've not seen that.
Trent can't just dive in like that. Nowhere near the ball.
It's not.
I haven't heard any person even debate that on the site. He literally comes to take him out, thinking, "I'm not letting him get past."
No, so I'm not questioning Trent's intent. You know what I mean? He's flying across like that, but he actually doesn't, and there's no point where he's even gonna hit him. You know what I mean? Gordon's over him, and then if you watch it, he drops his legs onto Trent and goes. Watch it back. Honestly, it's nuts. It's a proper dive.
So you're saying that wasn't a foul?
No, it's one of them where, again,
it's one of them. It's one or the other. Is that a foul or not a foul?
Only because it's the way Trent's coming across at pace. Exactly. It looks well worse than it is. Because
it looks well worse. It looks well worse.
Made a meal afterwards, so it's like.
It's not sending off or nothing, is it? But it's definitely a foul, mate. There's no. And look, you won't hear us say that Anthony Gordon doesn't make the most of challenges, and you know if he's going to be called a cheat for that, then that's what he gets. So I don't think that goes without saying. The other thing I would say is there's not many, in inverted commas, cheats in that category who aren't really good players as well. You don't get crabs, do you? Getting called cheats for diving. Generally good players who attract tackles. So I think the manager and I think him will just have to take it on board and you know I think there's a balance to be made there. I wouldn't say to never go down again because I don't think Salah does that either. But he certainly needs to use his good balance and his pace more productively and make sure he doesn't attract that reputation like Gary said.
What did you make of when Richarlison goes over on his ankle and we played on not kicking it out?
In the heat of the moment, it done me as in, but I get it. I wouldn't have wanted us to kick it out in that situation. It wasn't a head injury. I think your players are probably thinking like Carragher's thinking, nothing wrong with him. He goes over a lot, and again, maybe he's another player who's a victim of going over a lot. And a bit like the boy who cried wolf. If you cry wolf that much, and suddenly when you are actually injured, I don't think it was a serious injury, but he did. You can see from the replay, he does his knee and goes over on his ankle. I
think what's happened there is because of how the game's panned out up until that point where we're getting more and more frustrated by the stoppages and all that. He goes in to make a challenge on, is it Thiago? He goes to make a challenge on Thiago, misses the challenge and goes down. In the stand, I couldn't see that he rolled his ankle. I'm sure the players probably weren't looking at his feet. So they probably just thought he threw himself on the floor to stop our attack. And that's why they've carried on. It's only until, as you say, till you see the replays back that you see he's actually gone over on his ankle. But even still, I just think as important as that game is late on in the season, to both of us, if it was the other way around, I'd have expected you to do the same because the points are as important to use as they are to us for different reasons. You can't be letting them stop it as much as they want.
If you should have scored from that, Richarlison would have just got the worst abuse imaginable from our fans. Because he gets a lot of criticism from our fans for going down and staying down. Yeah. And 2 minutes later, he's sprinting away. So it's not the opposition fans, only the opposition fans who criticise Richarlison for that. And like any player, if he's not delivering in terms of scoring as well, you get even more irritated by it. And look at, he rolls his ankle. It looks like he does catch his knee. It looks like a bit of a sore one, but I'd say 8 or 9 out of our 11 players would have just jumped up there and hobbled along and carried on until it went out and then went down. Because you had a man over on us there, and the goal wouldn't have got disallowed if you scored from it.
No.
It's frustrating for us as fans as well. But at the time, I was raging, thinking, kick it out. In the heat of the moment. But yeah, listen, just you've obviously touched on it. Look, I don't think, in the cold light of day, I don't think it was, one of them games where we look back and we got robbed in terms of results. I think it was a better side. I think, I think the thing with teams up at the top and we're at the bottom, you don't get the rub of the green, do you? And versus, and I'm not saying I'm not going to go as far as to say conspiracies and all that, which have been flying about on social media today. I just think that's the way it is. When you're down there, you don't seem to get the breaks. I think, if we were the team that were, in your position and user in ours, I think that penalty probably gets given to us and you probably don't get back in the game. But that's just the way it's been going for us. And I think the substitutions, the players you can bring off the bench versus who we had to bring off when we went 1-0 and 2-0 down, says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely something in that, isn't there? It feels like, as you say, when it's not going for you, it's not going for you, and it does make you feel like, everything's stacked against us and all that. But as you say, I don't think there's any great sort of conspiracy going on there or nothing like that. It's just one of them things that the penalty decision, and at the end of the day, I don't think it was our best performance. I thought we were much better second half than we were first half, but there is just a difference in quality, in terms, as you say, what can come off the bench for us and what can come off the bench for you, and we just took our chances. Basically.
It's been a big thing for us this season. That certainly since January when Diaz come in as well. The fact that we've got this quality that comes off the bench. Like you look at our front three of old with Salah, Mane, Firmino. Before Jota comes, before Diaz comes, when they're coming off, you're going down. The quality of the forward line is going down. Whoever's coming on for them. Now you've got similar quality, and if one of them's having a bad game, you can bring one or two players off the bench who are going to improve your team, and it's such a big difference for us this season. That's why we've been able to claw all the points back to City. That's why we've gone so far in all the competitions, just because the squad depth now is. We've always had squad depth, but the quality of squad depth now is there.
Just a couple of just on that topic, a couple of again our followers / listeners to mention. Nick Morris has sent a typically detailed question. Thanks, Nick. He's mentioned about Everton disrupting the game while Liverpool wants to play yesterday. He said Everton in a really sorry state. What do both sides think about the golfing clash and how it's happened? Also interested to know if the Reds think they got off with one yesterday with Matip on Gordon. We've covered the Matip on Gordon one. Nick, I think when we looked at this question, it's probably one for the end of the season. One way or the other, whether we stay up or don't stay up, and whether Liverpool win the league or don't win the league, the golfing class is obvious. I don't think either side would debate that, but it's probably a lengthy podcast that to go into that, and not one that we can cover in a couple of minutes. So thanks, Nick, and we'll definitely come back to that. One more to add, which is a little bit quicker, but on a similar note, it's from Tony Evans. I think Everton will survive, but how can these... This is actually not a tweet aimed at us, but it's an interesting one that was doing the rounds. How can we spend 500 million, have a defence or midfield like that, and I'm not having Richarlison? If he was half as good as he thinks he is, the team would easily be safe. Misdirected talent. It's an interesting one, that, because, I mean, as the Reds might be quick to remind anyone, I was really fancying Richarlison to either hit the heights this season or to go for mega money, or both. It hasn't happened for him, like a lot of players isn't that having that squad. But look, I think if we come the end of the season, if we don't survive and Richarlison doesn't contribute again in these last 6 games, he's definitely one of the ones I think that a lot of the fans will level criticism towards for not producing. Pricey.
Yeah, he hasn't produced half as much as what you'd expect him to, goals-wise or assist-wise. I think he's one of them players, if he's in a good team, he'll improve probably when he plays for Brazil. If he's in a good team, he'll play well. He's not the type of player you can rely on to drag you out of it. You can rely. He's not a main man. Do you know what I mean? He's not like put all your eggs in your Richarlison basket and hope that he can drag you out, or he can do this for you. But in a good team, so I think if we did improve, I mean, if big money came in for him in the summer, even if he stayed up, I think Everton will probably seriously consider it. But in a good team, if we'd have built a good team in the 4 years or however long since he's been here, I think his numbers would be higher than what they are at the moment. I get frustrated with him just because I think he's better than what he shows as well. Strangely enough, I think he should, he has got a certain amount of quality that he should be scoring more goals, and he does get in the chances, and he does miss quite a few sitters. So he sort of has got that bit about him where you think he frustrates you because you know he can do better, or you hope that he can do better, not because he's shit. You know what I mean? And that's what does my head in about him more than anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, it's probably one that we look back on one way or the other, the end of the season. I think the picture looks very different, doesn't it? If the last 6 games we win 4 of them and Richarlison scores the winner in them 4 games, then you go, that's what he's there for. But there's no doubt at the moment that as we stand, as we sit here, he's not lived up to expectations this year. Quick one, more of a pleasant note. Sue has messaged us on the website and said, "Can you wish a happy birthday to my husband Stephen, who's a big fan and watches every show. 62 years young, Stephen, and you share the same birthday, exactly same birthday as my mum as well. So you're the exact same age and the same birthday as my mum. So happy birthday, Stephen." And that's from Sue, your wife. So always a nice little one. You know what, as well, we get loads of those messages and we don't read them out enough. So thanks, Sue, and happy birthday, Stephen, who's a Red, so he'll be happy today.
And happy birthday, Mrs. Judge, as well.
Yeah.
Cheers. My mum will not be listening to the podcast. I'm not going to lie. I might just play this to her. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to add. Obviously, I think a lot of the conversation today outside of the chat about the game has been looking now at the fixtures of Everton and Burnley. You know, there's a slightly there's a big game tonight. You know, Palace are playing Leeds. If Palace beat Leeds, then suddenly, you know, Leeds certainly can't count themselves out of it. If Leeds do get a result, it's very much a two-horse race. And I know you had a little look at it, Terry, didn't you? I think today, just for conversational reasons, you think that Burnley will get more points than Everton?
Yeah, I think they probably will. I mean, it feels to me like Burnley have sort of threw the cards on the table. You know, the die's gone, and it's almost like they've gone, we've got nothing to lose here, like, and everything to gain, you know, by just going for it and literally playing foot off, like literally handbrake off and just go for it in games. And they've got a reasonably, you know, nice running where they could probably do that against teams, you know, and as they have done this week, you know, they've picked up 2 wins. So I feel like they've, more than you, I still feel like you are playing with that fear of, you know, we're too big to go down and that, like, not really taking that handbrake off, you know, in when you're in the games where you think we need to win, we've just got to go for it. I feel like Burnley have done that now, and they've just sort of gone, and it's just that mentality thing, you know, that when you start winning, it gets you momentum, doesn't it? And it gets you sort of up for the next one. And I feel like they're a little bit more than you in that moment.
I think the big thing for Everton is making sure that game in hand doesn't go to waste. I think if you get on same games played and you're still below them, I think that's when you'll be in real trouble. I think if as long as you can keep that little bit of gap between you, and you can stay the point or 2 points, whatever it is, above them, I think you'll probably be all right. But I think your heads might go if you end up in there on the same games played.
I mean,
I think there's. Sorry, Judge.
No, go on, Pricey. It's all right.
I was going to say I agree with Terry. I think we're more desperate than Burnley seem. I think there's more on us if we go down. Obviously, the money we've spent and the size of our club, the fact we've never been down, and all that. There's more pressure. And I know you can look at fixtures and go, well, I think we'll beat them. I think they'll beat them. But I think just even the last few weeks where they got beat by Norwich, we beat Man United, they beat us. You know, I think there's going to be more twists and turns to come. And it's just about Everton holding the nerve as much as they can and not letting it get on top of them. If Burnley do push ahead, if they, you know, for example, if we get beat by Chelsea, they beat Watford at the weekend, I think that puts them 4 points ahead of us. So we just need to keep our head and realise we can still drag them in. It's not the end of it. Let's not give up, and it's going to be about that for Everton for me. It's going to be about just letting it go. You know, knowing there's 6 games to go and playing those 6 games, wherever it goes between now and then, because they'll go above us, we'll go above them, I imagine. Just keeping our heads and seeing how we go. But the home games for us are going to be vital, aren't they? And then if we can nick the Leicester, I think Leicester's the game in hand. If we can get a win against Leicester, win our home games, potential to stay up, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. It's obviously nowhere near mathematically over. It's very tight down there. You know, technically speaking, you know, they're ahead of us. We've got a game in hand, like you say, which should take us ahead of them. But I think it's to be fair, as Lampard said in the last few weeks, it's a lot more now about the mentality of the players, like you just said as well, Pricey, than it is their ability. Now it's, can they hold the nerve? Can they take the chances when it matters? Can they dig in? I agree with you, Terry. I think Burnley have showed in the last couple of weeks that they look the more likely in that sense. They look like, you know, they've kept 2 clean sheets on the bounce. They've dug out results, which is what it's about at this stage of the season. We've got a bit more to prove on that level, but again, I think it'll definitely be interesting at both ends of the table. Any more thoughts on your fixtures? I mean, I personally look at City's fixtures now, and I think more and more I can't see who beats them in that running.
Well, they've got Leeds, haven't they, which is a bit of a derby. So it depends on what Leeds do. You know, if they're desperate for points, and although I don't expect Leeds will beat City, you know, City are a well better team than them. Leeds are also the type of team that I don't think City, if you catch City at the right time, they won't like playing against. They don't like it when teams hustle them, you know, like sort of hassle them and high energy and press them. Leon done it to them a couple of seasons ago. We do it to them quite often, and it's like they're the type of teams. I think if you sit back against City, they just training ground stuff. They just take the mick out of you. But if you do go at them, which I think Leeds, if on the day, if they're up for it and they're in the right mood, they can. I think they could catch City, you know, a little bit off guard. But that's probably the only one I'm looking at. I'm thinking, other than that, the run-ins are very, very similar, you know, in terms of like if you're looking at what the games.
I think we play 3 of the same teams, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a Spurs game which looks tricky, you know, a bit of a tricky one. That's probably our hardest game in the run-in. But before any of that, for us, is obviously we've got the semi-final on Wednesday, haven't we, of the Champions League, and then we've got an 12:30 kickoff on Saturday against Newcastle, and Newcastle are flying. You know, like they're really, where are they now? 10th or something, or 11th in the league, aren't they? Newcastle, they've flown up.
9th. They were 9th when last time I looked.
9th, yeah. So, you know, that won't be an easy game coming on the back of our game against Villarreal on Wednesday, and then we've got to get back, and then we've got to go, you know, and play Newcastle at 12:30. So, you know, that's a game for us that, you know, I think we've got to make sure that we turn up and obviously get a result there, because will that be before City's game, guys? Do you know?
Which Newcastle?
Yeah.
Yeah, 12:30 Saturday, innit? So it will be.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So, you know what I mean? It's a chance for us to sort of again say, what have you got? And we've just got to keep taking them opportunities and asking them questions.
Yeah, I agree. It's a big. The Villarreal game for me is massive now, especially you know we historically we know we love being away second leg. Villarreal have obviously got people are talking about this easy run we've had in the knockout round of the Champions League, but it's not Liverpool's fault that Bayern Munich couldn't beat them and Juve couldn't get through their leg against them. And you know, Villarreal are no mugs. You can't take them lightly. They won the Europa League last year to get into this Champions League, and now they're here in the semi-final. They're obviously doing something right. I don't think we can take it lightly at all. We need to make sure we turn up first and foremost in that game. And being away second leg, it's. I know I think they've lost a couple of games away from at home in the Champions League, haven't they? But even still, being away from home second leg of a Champions League semi-final, it's a big ask. It's a tough game, no matter who you are. Yeah,
it's why we've got to make that count on Wednesday. And ideally, you want us to like sort of not put the tighter bet, you know, you want us to put the tighter bet if we can in the first leg of it, you know what I mean? Because we need all the rest we can get, you know, for players and that, and the options to rotate and stuff. So it is a massive game that on Wednesday. The thing, what you're saying with Villarreal, Unai Emery's the manager, isn't he? And Emery was the Sevilla manager when they kept winning the Europa League and stuff. He's like a bit of a European specialist, isn't he? So, you know what I mean? There won't be any mugs, and you know, it is a huge game. And then obviously, you know, as I say, we go to Newcastle. So in the context of our season, this week is massive, really.
But yeah, another big week. I feel like I'm just saying that every week at the moment, but it certainly isn't it. There's no doubt it's the case at both ends of the table. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Been a tough one for me this, but I actually feel a little bit better. It's mad when that happens. You have a little talk about it, a little bit of therapy, feel a little bit better. Hopefully it's the case for the rest of the Blues, but I'm sure it's not. But again, thanks everyone for listening. Take care, and we'll catch you all next week.